Hey, I'm Thomas Cain, and I'm an attitude pattern specialist, and I'm about to be on the online prosperity show. In this episode, you can expect some of my story, my homelessness, my trials, my tribulations, and changing my attitude, my beliefs, and my choices to become what you see today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your number one destination for exclusive stories and breakthrough solutions that help you conquer the real life struggles of health, wealth, and relationships. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today I think we've got something extraordinary. Our guest today, Mr. Thomas Cain. Now, Thomas, how are you doing today?
Phenomenal. Thank you very much, Prosper. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. Where in the world would you find somebody who's a real life management certified coach, leadership attitude pattern strategist, and a guy who actually went from creating gourmet meals for the NFL players to then cooking 2,200 meals in a day? And then from that, goes on to sleep on a park bench while showering at Planet Fitness. It sounds like a tale from a movie, but we're going to be unfolding all of that today. And that's exactly the story and life of Thomas Cain. And if that doesn't make you do a double take, I don't know what else will. So today's episode is all about our hidden attitude patterns that can either sabotage us while we're under pressure, and how Thomas literally altered his life by changing his beliefs. So we're going to dive into the pain he solved for himself so that you can actually see how the tools he has come up with can transform not only the people around you, but your own health, relationships, and wealth. Now, Thomas, I could go on and talk about things that I'm not even qualified to talk about. Maybe I missed out something while I was trying to introduce you. Tell us a little bit about your journey and who Thomas Cain is.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Prosper. That's a great introduction. Thank you very much for that. So Thomas Cain, number one, is a son of the high and mighty Jesus Christ God. Number one. And I started my journey, at a young guy living down in Texas, in the heart of Texas. We hunted, we fished, we did a lot of those things, rode horses. My grandfather owned a peanut farm. We lived on a lot of land growing up until we moved into the city. We moved into the city about fourth grade, and then sports really became my life all the way through high school. All district 2 sport athlete, played sports the majority of my life, and then got into the restaurant business. And that's really where the majority of my career went, in the corporate direction. Brinker International was one of my very first jobs. Chili's, washing dishes at a young age, similar to what Prosper did when he went to Melbourne, right?
I know that super, super well. And thank you so much for opening us up with that tidbit of information. So hunting and fishing, absolutely. I mean, slowly your life is starting to morph into how my life started. But obviously for you, that was for recreation. This wasn't for sustenance, was it?
No, that was just straight as a child, as a young kid. That's what we did. We hardly ever was inside, Prosper. You know that growing up. We didn't come from a generation where all the technology was. We had, 4 channels living in the country. I think we got to watch a couple movies growing up, and that's really about it.
I can only imagine. And we actually had to wait for Saturday. That's the only time when cartoons would start off a little bit earlier in the day. So I can understand that much there. So what was the reason why you had to move to the city then, if you would have grown up in that sort of upbringing?
Yeah, so my mother and my stepfather at the time got jobs in the city, mainly my stepfather, and my mother was going through college to get her bachelor's degree. And then she also got a job up in the city when we moved to right outside of Fort Worth, Texas.
Absolutely. And obviously this would have created somewhat of a pattern break because you're used to, maybe the slow life in, where you were before. And now you had to move into the hustle and bustle of the city. And you did mention you took up sport.
Yeah, it was a real reality check. Going from having all of the land to do whatever you want to do to living in a trailer and you just have this one corner lot and the boundaries are so tiny that lots of times as a kid we kind of overstepped our bounds, right?
Yeah. So by you taking on sport, was that a way of escape or was it just something to do just so you wouldn't be able to see what was happening?
The majority of our family was always in basketball and football and they ran track. And so it was really just following suit with what we knew growing up. All my uncles, they were all athletes. Everyone from our family was in athletes, even though we were from a small town. Athleticism was something that kind of just ran in the genes. So when we moved into the city and football was an option, it was time. It was time to go.
Absolutely. And from there, you went on and started, in the restaurant business. What was the allure to that type of work? Was there any inspiration or were there people around you that were doing that or was that just the
No,
money?
not at all. Right out of high school, my very first job was washing dishes at Chili's, the Chili's Brinker International Concept. And then I honestly got that job just because my best friend got that job. And I was like, hey, why don't we just hang out there too? Right. And so started washing dishes. And then 1 year later was leading the kitchen. Another year after that, opened 2 separate restaurants in the culinary direction. And then another year after that, entered into the corporate training aspect of Brinker International and started traveling around to opening Chili's. Chili's was the concept, but restaurants for Brinker International.
And what was some of the highlights? I mean, obviously now you are in a position no longer having to scrap chilies off of pots and pans, but you're actually teaching other people to,
Sure.
how to function. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been in the training industry, but it was always for a corporate environment. And it wasn't until after I was with Chili's for almost 10 years, and it wasn't until after I left Chili's and the Brinker International Concept where I did a deeper dive into the culinary arts direction.
Now, there's a tale of you having cooked an 1836 style, Texas Independence Day dinner, and apparently cowboy boots were required. What was the most hilarious?
Absolutely.
What was the most hilarious misunderstanding that this moment created?
So Texas Independence Day was in 1836, and we wanted to do something very specific for Texas Independence Day. And so I actually went down to Washington on the Brazos in Texas, and I met with Barrington Plantation. There's a group of individuals that have master's degrees in history, and they actually go to this plantation every day. They dress from the 1800s. They sew their own clothes. They cook from the 1800s. They have ancient seedlings. They have 1800 cookbooks, everything from that time period. And so I really submersed myself in that in order to create a menu when I was the executive chef for a restaurant that really hit home. And we really wanted to give true, authentic 1836 style food. And so when I met with Barrington Plantation, we were actually able to bring a menu back that really hit that on that nail on the head. And it was so fun just bringing that heritage, bringing the ancient seedlings. And if you're not familiar with what an ancient seedling is, 97% pure original seed, no genetically modified. That's all that this plantation actually grows in their fields. It must be 97% pure seed.
So if what you're saying is 97% of pure seed, what are we growing then?
Exactly, right? That's a whole different question, isn't it? I mean, we could go on for days about what's in our food, right? But I mean, we'll digress into and stay on topic here.
I
But
can.
yeah, it was an amazing journey. I actually brought in some music from the time period as well. I brought in one of the historians from the plantation in order to narrate the food as it was coming out. We did a four-course dinner and also a dessert to highlight what they were eating during that time period. We sold out. It was a great experience, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. I said cowboy boots required. We're in Texas. It's necessary to at least own one pair of boots, right?
Well, I'm saying, and a hat, and a cowboy hat, I suppose, is
Absolutely.
part of the ensemble. Otherwise, what are you even doing there? You know. Now,
Yes, absolutely.
in all this time, you've actually managed to feed celebrities, churches,
Yeah,
NFL stars.
sure.
But in 2021, something happened. I'll let you go into that a little bit. What was what
Yeah.
was that, and how did that completely change who you've become now?
So in 2021, I was actually in my second marriage at the time, and things just started getting very toxic. Unfortunately, our marriage did not survive the toxicity and we needed to part. So I actually ended up losing everything that I had ever worked for. And by the end of the year in 2021, I was homeless, sleeping on park benches. So we had accumulated together through inheritance and things that we have worked for around $6 to $8 million in assets. And then I was homeless by the end of the year, like I said, sleeping on park benches. And at the time, going through this, I then became in distress and I became very depressed whenever I lost everything I'd ever worked for.
Can only I can only try and see what those cowboy boots would have felt
Mhm.
like,
Yeah,
especially going through that sort of
yeah,
time. But I can
sure.
I can try and see the pressure that would have been coming
Mhm.
from, the kitchen scenarios is a pressure cooker in and of itself. And I can
Yeah,
then try and imagine how that would be happening, especially when you're also trying to run a relationship and a
sure.
life all at the same time. Now, maybe you can walk us through what was actually happening that would have maybe brought us to that particular situation.
Sure, I was 303 pounds. I was under psychiatric care for bipolar manic depressive.
Mm.
And I actually got a job back into the restaurant business at a local restaurant so that I could eat. And luckily, the business consultant at that restaurant was international speaker, founder of real life management, founder of multiple companies. And as I'm working at that restaurant, he comes to me and says, "Hey, tell me your story." So then I got to dive into a story similar like this with Wayne Nance, is his name. And he took me under his wing. And for the past 4.5 years, he has been my best friend. And he actually showed me through the system how I send and receive information, my priorities in communication, my secondaries, who I am under stress, who I am in distress. And in 8 weeks of working the system and the program with him as my coach and mentor, I was able to start getting off all of my bipolar medication and stop seeing the psychiatrist. Then the journey really started.
Mm.
And go ahead.
Yeah, from what you're saying, obviously you went from 303 pounds, that diagnostics that you would have had, bipolar, homelessness, to literally
Mm-hmm.
being off of your meds in 8 weeks. Or was
Yeah.
this like a progressive
I
consultation that was
started,
actually
yeah, I
happening? Yeah.
started to become off of my medication in 8 weeks. And then the process to stop seeing the psychiatrist started to come. And then the discipleship that he started doing with me and the weekly meetings and me getting my pattern under control, understanding my stressors, understanding and getting more mature in my pattern so that the world didn't push me down or wasn't able to affect me the way that it was previous to meeting him and understanding who I was. It was all about me. And I had to get control of me before I could start doing anything else, before I could be a good father, before I could be a good leader, before I could do any of those things. I had to get me under control.
Absolutely. And usually, when you're flying, they say you want to put your mask on first in order for you to be able to then help those that are
Yeah.
around you. Maybe you can take us inside that moment of clarity of realizing
Mhm.
that I had to take maybe ownership or be the one to take a lead in what was now happening. What woke up inside of you?
I'll be honest with you, when you go from the hustle and bustle of the kids running around and you're busy at work, and what really did it for me was the silence. When I'm sitting there on that park bench in the middle of the night and there's no noise and you just hear the crickets, you had nothing but to deal with yourself. I really had to audit. Okay, this is the second divorce. This is the second time, not this case scenario, but this was the second time in my life that things like this have happened to me. What about me do I need to understand deeper? And I had to start auditing. What am I doing? What is it about me that I'm doing? And when I started working with Wayne and real life management, everything started to unfold. My weaknesses were structure, organization, boundaries, and details. Well, coming with that is also following a budget that it gains clarity on your finances. And then I was also a procrastinator at times in some things. And so working with Wayne and him helping me understand what my weaknesses were, and then doing the very uncomfortable work in a homeless state in order to gain clarity and in order to get better control. I really, again, had to self assess and just audit myself and say, well, we need to do this because number one, I don't ever want to be in this situation again. Number two, I need to be more well rounded.
And thank you so much for taking us there because obviously because fish don't see the water that they swim in. And
Mm-hmm.
you obviously would have had experts around you. I mean, the psychologists, the doctors, all giving you or leading you towards something. Why Wayne? Why then? Why that exact moment? Why did the real life management tools really strike a chord for you at that particular moment? And do you know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I now know that God was the complete contributing factor in order to put all of this together. I could not have done this on my own. I was placed in the wilderness in order to understand my purpose. Wayne is the driving force of now unlocking what my purpose is and now to help the people. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper dive later. But I was placed in that wilderness for a very specific reason. And it's not until you lose everything can you then do anything. And when Wayne was placed into my life during that very specific time, this program is what clicked for me. It wasn't DISC. I've tried DISC. I have tried Myers-Briggs. I had tried all these other things to help me understand who I was, to give me the framework to start working and to be a better individual. It took me losing everything and being in this wilderness in order for me to, number one, find my faith, and number two, be placed with Wayne. And then it all just came together.
So obviously, when the student is ready,
Yeah,
the teacher appears or the circumstances start working towards that. But we're talking 8 million here. That's a lot of money for you to just say,
sure.
oh wow, that was on me.
Sure. Yeah, I take full responsibility. We can sit here and go, it's 50% this and this and this, but no, it's 100% the leader of the family. And I wasn't that.
You could also look at your job, what was expected of you. The stress is messy. It's actually a hidden monster for a lot of people. I mean, is there a misconception that people carry, especially when it comes to stress management, that you wish you could maybe shout out from the rooftop now that you know what you know?
Identifying and becoming aware and gaining control of what your actual stressors are Each individual person has their own pattern of how they send and receive information. Prosper, your stressors are going to be different than my stressors. But being able to identify what they are so that you can have control of them, the awareness is the superpower. Now, when I feel the emotion, my emotion is my body's reaction to what my mind is thinking. I immediately go, okay, what is going on in my head? If I'm feeling this, what is happening here? Because there is a correlation. If this relationship is having some conflict, why is this relationship having conflict? So I have to go back. What is happening here? What is happening here? So it all goes back to understanding the patterns and having the awareness of where your emotions are taking you and what your thoughts are doing.
No, Thomas, I mean, you had a clean cut out of this. You cleaned yourself up, not homeless anymore, and you've gotten back into the swing of things. Any normal person would have been like, you know what? I've done my part. I'm going to sit around and chill. But you went on and wanted to teach or coach other people. Why is that?
It changed my complete existence. It changed the way I father. It changed the way I friend. It changed the way I communicate. If my story can impact somebody, one person in this world to say, hey, look, just because your circumstances are what they are, that doesn't define who you are. You can get through any situation. Prosper, I went on 2024 of last year. I was in 2 car accidents. February of last year, I was in 1 car accident that totaled the vehicle with my kids in the car. Everyone is safe. Thank the Lord. I herniated 3 discs in my thoracic region and I tore my rotator. Again, I could have stopped there, but because I understood my stressors, I know who I was under stress. I know who I am in a distress position. The wheelchair wasn't going to stop me. The hospital bed wasn't going to hold me. So then I'm going into a little bit later in 2024. I'm coming out of the rehab. September comes, another lady pulls out in front of me, and I hit her and herniated the rest of my thoracic region. Wasn't able to walk 4 times in 2024. So when I said to you earlier, me and my kids ran a 5K, I couldn't walk 4 times last year. This system gave me the resiliency. Obviously, I had to do the work. Obviously, I had to do the self-assessment. I had to do the evaluations. And again, I had to do the journaling. I had to get my food under control. I had to do the work to lose 84 pounds. I had to do all of the work that it took to get to where you see that I am today. And if I can do that, it's now my purpose to help every single person that I can understand they can too.
From what I'm understanding from what you're saying is all of these things didn't happen to you. They happened for you.
Absolutely.
But not a lot of people would just say, okay, that car accident or both the car accidents, that's got anything to do with me. I was just maybe minding my own business. How do you go in and take blame for things like that?
So again, as far as the car accident, that's a different way to take blame. That was circumstantial. A lady pulled out in front of me. The accident happened. I can take the blame if I stay in the hospital bed. Right. I can take the blame if I do not do the work. I can then blame myself to not get up to start walking. I can stay in the wheelchair and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. That's my fault, right? But no, that's not the case. I'm not doing that anymore simply because I want to be the story. I want to be the light. I want to show people who are in the darkness. It doesn't matter what is happening. Again, your circumstances do not define you. Let's go. Like whatever it is I can do to help. And so that, again, that is my purpose, to help people understand who they are, how they send and receive information, how their pattern affects health, wealth, and relationships, how their pattern and their beliefs together affect their choices. I plan on spending the rest of my life in order to help people understand that.
Maybe you can start by now. What is real life management?
Real life management is the only company that has been able to identify what the core attitude pattern of an individual is. The tools that Wayne Nance built identifies 200 pages of information in 3 minutes with 92% accuracy. So it's A plus B plus C equals D. Your core attitude is 50% of why you make the choice that you do. Your belief system is 30%, which comes from the pattern. Your choice is only 20% of what's happening to you, and the D is the destiny or the decision that you make. This system is the only one that identifies the core attitude pattern of what's behind the obesity. The obesity is a choice. The choices are the obesity. Depression is the choice. Well, what's causing the depression? What is happening in the distressed position in that pattern that is causing the depression? And so this system actually does a deep dive into exactly where the root causes of what is happening to someone is. And then we also show you how that affects your health. How does that affect your wealth? How does that affect your relationships? It all comes out of that core attitude pattern. And again, this system is the one that, I mean, I'll preach it to the moon and back simply because it was part of the part that saved my life.
While we were looking up some of the stats and facts for this show, I discovered in America, 85% of people are broke, 65% are obese, 52% are divorced. That is above half of any matrix that you're looking at, which means 1 in 2 people are going through certain things. Now,
yes,
so many people won't see the difference because their neighbor looks like that, their uncle looks like that, and he's going through that particular sort of thing. How then can people start really adjusting to be obviously not a statistic?
You've got to want to do the work, Prosper. It's not about a shot to help you with your obesity. That's a quick fix. People want quick fixes in this world. Very specific attitude patterns want quick fixes. You got to want to do the work. And those stats are staggering. And those stats are actually what's going into our workforce and our employment force. So when we go in and we do efficiency studies into companies as well, that is some of the things that we look at. We know the very specific attitude patterns that waste money, that waste time, that waste whatever that looks like, right? I recently spent some time with the International Health and Productivity Management Company, and they actually went through some statistics of how much productivity is lost because of obesity, how much productivity is lost because of depression, how much productivity is lost because of simple allergies. And believe it or not, in a study done with Lockheed Martin, $1.8 million was lost simply because of allergies in 1 year. Well, there is a correlation between the productivity that is lost in a company and a health-related risk. And so that is another reason of why it's important to understand, why is this happening to you? Why do you make the choices that you make? And doing a deep dive and self-assessing and doing the auditing process of, okay, what can I do? And Prosper, I teach people this all the time. It's not about you. It's about your children. If you make the changes, they make different choices. Now that I'm running, my kids run. Now that I'm eating healthy, they're eating healthy. Now that I am a better communicator, I can sit them down and they actually want to talk with me now. So it's not about, is it fun for me? No, it's not fun for me. Do I want to run 5Ks? No, I don't want to run 5Ks. But I know that they have to run the rest of their life in order to be healthy, and they have to make better choices. If I don't do that, then neither will they. And so I really had to take myself out of the situation completely to say, it's not about me, but it starts with me.
Because especially with our kids, they are at an age where what we're doing is exactly what they will end up doing. Monkey see, monkey do. And
yes,
we might expect them to be better humans later on, but we, like you say, have to set the standards. So where do people start?
self-assess. Self-assess. I mean, if you want to choose real life management to help you understand who you are, your patterns, your stressors, and all of that, you can always go to reallifemanagement.com and check out the website, take our quick little survey, and then always reach out to me via LinkedIn or fill out the contact form on the Real Life Management, and someone will always get back with you to do that. If it's not our system, self-assess. Look around at yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Look at the choices that are in your cupboard to eat. Look at the choices of whether you exercise or not. The 5 big things that we include in our journaling. Number 1 is the food. Number 2 is spending. Number 3 is emotion. Number 4 is exercise. And number 5 is education. And you want to know what the key factor in all 5 of those are, Prosper? It's the emotion. The emotion will drive the rest of them. So if you have all of them under control and you have a stress day, you know what we notice in our journaling? You eat out. You overspend. So getting the understanding of how your emotions are driving your spending and your daily habits, it's so imperative to understand those things. When you ask me where do they start, they can start with journaling themselves every single day. They can start with looking up for an emotional journal. I mean, obviously, I would like for everyone to come to Real Life Management to understand how fast and how deep our system actually goes and how quick we can help. But if it's not us, find something. There's all kinds of tools out there to do a deep dive in. But again, understanding who you are. If it's a simple journaling process that you want to start with those 5 key ingredients, and they all work off of each other. So if you have a bad day eating and your emotion is under in a wreck, you're not going to exercise and you skip your workouts. It's all correlated. And the education is what you're learning for the day or your spiritual journey or whatever that looks like.
Thomas, I don't know where I come from. I mean, where I am right now, we live in a world where food is readily available in a can or in a package, and the spending is easy because you can just do 4 easy payments of something that possibly you might not need tomorrow, but hey, it's convenient. And the emotions are regulated by the black devices that we seemingly cannot, detach ourselves from. And the exercise, there's so much convenience, man. If I want to order food, I don't necessarily even need to think. I could just reach out for my phone and then somebody has it on my doorstep before it's too late. And the education, hey, I just send my kids where they get told, yay, everyone is a winner. So how can anyone win when everything else has been systemically set up in such a way that is very convenient?
Yeah, there's only one word that answers that, and it's discipline. It's discipline to want to make the changes for your legacy. Not for the day, not for the week, not for the month, not for the year, but for your legacy, for your kids. Because again, I teach and I'll preach this until it's the end of my time. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about what we do so that our children make better choices. But that one word is discipline. And I heard this thing the other day. Jim Rohn said, if you have an idiot and you motivate him, you have a motivated idiot. You have a motivated idiot. But if you instill discipline in someone who legitimately wants to make a difference in their lives and the ones around them, that's not motivation. That's discipline. And that's routine. And that's structure. And that's organization. And that's getting your finances under control. That's becoming better with your relationships, being a better communicator, all of the things that are important.
Absolutely. And obviously it takes, it starts with you really taking full ownership that the buck stops with you, and you will then be doing the things that will enable you to have a happier existence in the future. But I mean, obviously you started off, from your culinary days, when you're making food, there's certain steps, there's certain procedures, there's certain ingredients. If you don't use the right ingredients and the right pacing, sometimes the food doesn't come out well. You know, the timing, the cooking, the management of the whole process. You know, for you to cook a meal, you need maybe 5, 6 different pots going on at the very same time. Have you
Absolutely
taken this concept into your coaching and helping people really manage? Because sometimes it gets a bit overwhelming.
it can be overwhelming, but once you dive into a system and a program, it's very 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's customized to that person's pattern. So there's no more guessing. I'm not asking you to do things that are out of your wheelhouse because I know that your pattern is one that will do things. We will make you uncomfortable. You will need to be uncomfortable in order to grow. And as a matter of fact, you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable because that's where the most amount of growth actually happens. And then the aspect of accountability. When you have someone that holds you accountable, now if you make those choices, now you have to have the hard conversations with someone that's holding you accountable. And accountability is key when you are trying to change, or not change, but alter an aspect of your life. Accountability is key.
You see, some people, and I think this goes on with you, you only discovered coaching a little later on in your life. What is some of the misconceptions that maybe you come across when you start talking to people that they definitely need somebody to help them, be, do, and have, or instill that discipline in themselves?
So a lot of people don't understand the prison of their pattern. And if they don't, and they think they can just do it on their own, and don't get me wrong, it is possible to do some things on your own, but alter a prison of a pattern is one of the hardest things to do. Can you make money? Sure. It's not about making money. It's more about becoming a more balanced individual so that you can be adaptable, you can be flexible, so that you can operate from your heart, you can operate from your head, you can take on truth. I had a guy tell me the other day, and this is so powerful. He said, you can tell the level of someone's maturity by the amount of truth they can take. And I said, man, that's powerful. And that is true. If you're not willing and have the ability to take truth, you're obviously uncoachable. And there are people out there that say, I can do this on my own, I don't need anyone's help. They're still going to be in the exact same pattern. They're going to be in the exact same issues. They're going to be in the exact same, not rat race, but the circle of what is causing some of their things. Their stressors will still be the same, and so forth.
I think you've redefined in my head the statement, the truth will set you free. It's not necessarily telling the truth, but it's the actual truths. Like 1 + 1 is 2. And if you can accept that, you become actually free. And, speaking along that line, you've gone on and rebuilt everything, your faith, family, your health. Yes. I mean, and congratulations on that front alone. Which area surprised you the most with the truths that you were not facing when you started rebuilding, and why?
So for me, the hardest was my health. I never had a problem making wealth, but I always had a problem understanding how it correlated to my health. And the depth of how important your health is. When I started losing the weight, I actually started having more money in my account. When I started losing the weight, I was actually had better relationships. When I understood the importance of health, not just health, you have to have an annual blood work. If necessary, you have to have access, other heart tests done. You can't just dive into this exercise program being 300 pounds and just think that you're going to be able to fix it overnight. That's not the case. It's an entire structure. It's an entire plan. It's an entire accountability. But for me, the health aspect was one of the hardest things, and the mind blowing aspect of how deep of a dive you really need to go, because you are at risk at 300 pounds to get out there and take off running. If you're having some heart problems, or if your blood work states that you're pre-diabetic, there are lots of things that need to change in your nutrition before you just take off running. And for me, understanding how important the health aspect of things was what was mind blowing to me the most.
So you can't do well if you don't feel well, and
No.
it's just one of those things that you might think you're on top of things, but the moment you run out of breath and you can't even sit around in a conversation like this, you start becoming uncomfortable, and it just stops you from quite a lot of things, moving ahead and things of that nature. So thank you so much for bringing out that truth, because so many people don't quite understand that. But Thomas, somebody might say, well, I'm not from Texas. I haven't been homeless. My kids are fine. I haven't been divorced, but you actually help leaders decode attitude patterns. Does this actually work on other humans, or is it just a Thomas Cain issue that just needs to be, viewed in that sort of light?
Yeah. So believe it or not, when you said those statistics earlier about 85%, it's not, we're taking me out of it. Statistics across the world speak for themselves, right? So you can say, is this a Thomas Cain thing? And I'm going, no, 90% of the world struggles financially. 85% are obese, 60% end in divorce. This isn't just me. This is anyone that wants to know their personal and professional environment on a much deeper dive. I recently worked with a family of 5. The dad calls and says, hey, he had a house full of girls, wife and 3 girls. I have a hard time communicating with all of them. I said, yeah, I know. You don't even know who they are. And he said, okay, well, what can we do? I gave them all the survey. In less than 1 hour, we know their stressors. We know their priorities in conversation. We know and each individual person was different. And now dad communicates better to the entire family, communicates to the very specific pattern of daughter 1, daughter 2, or daughter 3, and can communicate better to the wife. Just opening that line of communication for their personal environment. Well, what does that do when you go to work? Hey, now it's, hey, Thomas Cain, can you help me with my work environment? Yeah, sure. Send him to the website. Let's go over it. We get on another call. Now he understands his secretary. Now he understands the CEOs he's an investor. Now he understands the CEOs that are in some of his organizations. And then we can do an efficiency study to say, these are the patterns that you have in your business. So it's not just about me. It's about now understanding why the statistics are even created, and then identifying and understanding the people in all of your environments. This is for anyone and everyone.
Thomas, when they say things happen to you, they mean it. And just looking at your scenario, somebody might come to you and say, but Thomas, you wouldn't understand. You've never been divorced. You've got the receipts. Somebody might say, you wouldn't understand. You've never run a business. You'd be like, they are the receipts. Somebody might say, you wouldn't understand. You've never been in a car accident. And you'd be like, do you want me to show you the receipts to that one as well? You wouldn't understand. You haven't been homeless. And how do you then maybe talk to people that maybe will be thinking, I think in Australia, we've got a statement that says, should be all right. Things will figure themselves out, or things like that. I don't think I'm going to need to undergo any of these things.
Yeah, I'll let you know right now, I'm very short on handling excuses. When people say to me and they try to give me some of these things like, well, I couldn't run. I'm like, what? Were you in a hospital? Were you in a wheelchair? Did you get in a car accident? Oh, no, I woke up late. And I'm like, whoa, what? So I am a walking billboard for things that have happened to me that I've overcome, right? And I can help almost anyone out of any situation. We haven't even got into the aspect of suicide or violence or some of those things, because in that time period, of when I was going through a lot of those things, I had suicidal ideologies. I wanted to take my life. I didn't even want to exist anymore. And again, this system was able to identify that I was in a suicidal position, and Wayne was able to intervene to say, hey, let's get you out. So the system also identifies if someone is at risk to harm themselves or harm ones around them. We know the exact patterns that are on death row. We know the exact patterns that are the greatest leaders in the world. We, per se, the greatest leaders in the world that do the best. We know the patterns that commit domestic violence. We know the patterns that actually get raped. We know the patterns that are suicidal as well. And so we haven't even touched on some of the details of that, the violence aspect of things. And as a matter of fact, the founder of the company did 7 years of research with the United States Army, and that's the exact thing that he identified and was able to help the chaplains understand was suicide and violence in the Army.
So I just heard from what you said, excuses only sound best to the man or woman that's telling them, to the rest of us, it's just data. And
Yes.
we can
Yeah.
show you, stats and everything else that prove you're not the only one to go through this. So if somebody has probably, seen some sort of light and wants to know a little bit more or discover how they can actually improve maybe their attitude, their belief systems, or make better choices, where would they be able to go to on the internet to find more information?
They can always go to reallifemanagement.com. They can always take the 3-minute survey. In that 3-minute survey, there'll be a little referral button. You could always put me. The information will come directly to Thomas Cain. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm active on there. I message people. I have one-on-one communications with them as well. I don't just connect with people. I have conversations with them, and I build relationships with them too. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can reach me through the Real Life Management platform, and I'll always reach out.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes below so that people can get started on their journey. Now, Thomas, indulge me for a little bit here, if you mind. You see, where I come from, this time around, I'm talking about the African roots. We undergo an activity, when you get to about age 16 or age 13, age 16 for guys and age 13 for girls, you're called in by the village elders, and then they proverbially tap you on the shoulder and they say, it's your turn to lead now. And obviously you undergo certain heart strengthening activities or life changing sort of things just to create a pattern break so that you can then go on and be the leader of yourself, your family, and everything else that happens in your life. And some people in some cultures call that somewhat of a rite of passage. Some people call that an initiation. And from there, you can now engage and become an adult. Whereas in the first world, and I'm going to say this with utmost love and respect, people just grow up, you go from kindergarten, you go to high school, go to university, and then you go for a job, you get married, you get kids, maybe you divorce or you get a disease, and then that's your life, all through that without some sort of a pattern break that then happens, which then gives you or realigns you with your direction and the way you're going to be living in life. Would you maybe say that this real life management activity is somewhat of a rite of passage, which people should then undergo in order for them to recalibrate and come out on the other side being the leaders that they're supposed to be, not only for themselves, but for their families and everything else that they touch upon?
100%. I think that for me and all the things that I've been through, this was the most eye-opening experience and process that I have went through to understand the ones around me. So I am now the teacher. I am now the leader. So I'm not expecting them to do the things for my pattern. I am now expected to do the things and communicate to theirs. I now know where they're going to be weak, and now I can coach and teach in that area. This system, again, it takes away all of the guessing. And first of all, I want to say I think that that's great that in that culture that they do that type of pattern break. And I think it's very important to do it at that young age. I just set my 12-year-old daughter in front of the survey, and she looked up the words, and I got her pattern. And you know what? It's different than mine, and it's different than her mom's. And so now I can go to meet the teacher at her 12 years old and say, this is who my daughter is. These are some of the weaknesses that she's going to have. This is where she's going to be strong. Here's where we need to coach and teach. And there's no more guessing. Now all of the teachers are on the same page as what I'm doing at home or what we're doing. And the teachers are now on the same page with that pattern. And then the teachers say, hey, well, can you help me with me? And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. But yeah, my other daughter's 19. She's second year Texas A&M. Her pattern, she's a little bit of a procrastinator. Detail, structure, and organization is third. Communication and taking action is last. And so now she knows I need to take action faster with my professors. I need to communicate faster in her college environment. And so now when she calls me and there are issues, I now know exactly why there are issues. We can now get on a call and we can have those conversations. So going into college, I think, is very necessary because now they're out on their own. Their pattern is formed. Their belief system is built. Now they're out making their own choices. And so it's important for them to understand who they are as well at an early age also.
Really. And I think it's vital because knowing yourself, you would know who you can hang out with, who you can partner with, who you can, be around. Because I think so many people are caught up in situations, people, and environments that no longer serve them. But because they don't quite know who they are just really getting, the brunt of it all and not really progressing in life. And then they will then resort to all the other things that we've mentioned earlier on. And, there's a whole industry that is ready to make them customers based on that analysis alone. Now, you're obviously, like you mentioned, coming across younger people, 19-year-old, 12-year-old, and these are your family. But I think out there, you're also meeting other people. Let's say by any chance you're actually coming across somebody who's a younger Chef Thomas, who's really trying to figure out stuff. Just, I don't know what you were doing in the kitchen there and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And, just right before you hit rock bottom, what's the one thing that you would tell them now that you know what you know about life?
That's such a loaded question. But the most important thing that I'll preach and I'll teach until my dying day is know thyself. Learn who you are. Audit yourself regularly. Audit your finances. Audit your beliefs. Audit your anger. Audit your emotions. Audit your thoughts. Completely self-aware yourself. Become aware of exactly who you are. And it's not about the money. People say, I just want money. I just want money. Becoming whole, money is a byproduct of becoming whole. Money is a byproduct of finding the purpose. Finding the purpose comes from becoming whole and understanding who you are. Your purpose is inside of you. It will slowly be released as you become aware and as you become more in control of who you are. But I would just tell them, I love them. Keep doing what you're doing. Make some tiny adjustments and understand who you are and leave those women alone. And stay focused. Stay focused.
Absolutely. Well, Thomas, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on this call today. Your life story, your experience, and what you've now built, it's just that beacon that a lot of people need. And not only are you just holding it on to yourself, you're leading, you're speaking, and you're coaching, and you're also helping others do and have a happier existence. And kudos to you, man, for having, put it all together. I think the Japanese have a statement that it's called kintsugi. When if a vase breaks, they would actually mend it with gold seal, and it actually makes it much more precious. And I think you have really done kintsugi on your entire life. But now that you've brought us into your world, what's next? What can we expect that you're working on that we can be excited about and help you celebrate in the future?
Yeah, so currently, again, I'm working with the investors to understand the people around them. We are also trying to do a deep dive into colleges and universities. With all of the shootings and all of the violence and all of the things that are happening across the world, a tool to identify who is at risk to pull the trigger is important. A tool that can identify who is at risk to take their own life is important, especially in the college environment when they're right out of their home and they're in this environment of making their own choices. So we are about to start going into colleges. We're about to start making the phone calls, having the meetings, building the relationships to help universities as well. So that is something that is going to be in the future that, you guys could always support us with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is amazing. Something that started off as 1836 Texas style Independence Day has now become a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going and giving all the way there. I don't know, man, but whatever it is that you did for yourself, you're now passing that on to the rest of the world. And for that, I really thank you for the journey that you took and also being on the Online Prosperity Show today.
Thank you very much, Prosper. And I want to give the most of this recognition to Wayne Nance. He is the one that created the entire program and the system. We're just now a group of us, the son-in-law and a few of us we want to continue his legacy, and we want to continue his purpose and what he's doing.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that acknowledgement and things of that nature. Now, for those that are watching, what a ride! I think that's the magic we aim here for on the Online Prosperity Show. It's real journeys, real breakthroughs, and tools that can actually bring back your life, because a lot of us are just going through the motions. We're not actually taking stock, like what Thomas said, really taking a full audit of where you are and where you would rather be and how to go through that. So if Thomas' story resonated with you, I think his journey from hitting rock bottom to now obviously running with his kids and doing things that he never thought he would be able to do. If this lit a spark in your life or resonated with you, just drop a comment below. What belief pattern do you think might be holding you back right now? And I think Thomas will be going through the comments, and then he can help us just answer a few of these questions. And I will also be putting all the links to his website so you can actually connect with him on a grander scale and check out some of his coaching and training that he is offering there. Now, I also want to make sure that you can catch the next episode just by clicking the link, which is on either side of you right now, where I think we're going to be diving deep into life-changing ideas that will help you build a happier existence. And if you found today's episode really, really life-changing, not only for yourself, I encourage you to share this conversation with somebody who just needs that bit of a nudge. And if somebody has shared this episode with you, pass on the favor, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will help you lead with impact. Until next time, it's been Prosper Taruvinga, and keep transforming, keep choosing purpose, and above all, live your real life with conviction. Bye for now.